Madam Speaker, I will rely on your indulgence because I will first do the second adjustment, which will not take 40 minutes, I can assure you. Then I'll rely on your guidance afterwards. And also pass speedy recovery to the Deputy Speaker, Mayor Lena Micha, and also greet our Honorable Premier, Re Kaubitsa Bushimape, my colleagues in the Executive Council, and then the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Leba Haitsu Botle, Babu Konibu Pirima, Banabarna Badikolo Babalon Dumelang. Madam Speaker, the 2022-23 second Northwest Provincial Adjustment Budget estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure is tabled in line with Section 31 of the PFMA. This section of the PFMA states that the MEC for Finance may table an adjustment budget of the province that provides for the appropriation of funds that have become available to the province. The National Treasury has published a gazette dated the 23rd December 2022 in terms of Division of Revenue Act of 2022, wherein it provides information on adjustment to the existing allocation for the National Health Insurance Grant and the Public Transport Operations Grant. In terms of Section 18 and 19 of the Division of Revenue Act, the National Department of Transport stopped the transfer of funds to Gauteng amounting to 97.4 million for PTOC, and these funds were reallocated to Northwest Province and directed to the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management, COSATMA. Madam Speaker, the revised allocation of PTOC is now increased from 130.6 million to an adjusted amount of 228.1 million for the 2022-2023 second adjustment budget. Furthermore, the National Department of Health stopped the transfer of funds to Eastern Cape of an amount of 7.4 million, Free State 381,000 rands, Limpopo 3 million, Northern Cape 4 million, Northwest 9.3 million, and Western Cape 8.6 million. The funds were reallocated to Gauteng, and 139,000 was for Gauteng province. Mpumalanga was 13.4 million, and KwaZulu-Natal was 9.3 million for the National Health Insurance Grant. These reductions are due to a miscalculation of the provincial allocation by the National Department of Health. Madam Speaker, Section 25 of the Division of Revenue Act provides that any transfers not listed in the schedule may only be made in terms of Section 6, subsection 3, which provides that additional allocation to provinces or municipalities may only be made during adjustment budget processes and must comply with monitoring and reporting requirements determined by a national treasurer. Furthermore, as per the current expenditure trends and the possible savings realized with expenditure would not affect service delivery in some departments, as well as overspending in health and COSATMA. An amount of 158 million was reduced from 4 departments, namely the Office of the Premier, the Department of Economic Development, Environment and Conservation and Tourism, Provincial Treasury, and Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And these reductions were redirected to health, which received 80 million, and to COSATMA, having received 78 million to address accruals for medicines and other related goods and services, and for scholar transport accruals respectively. This, Madam Speaker, implies that the challenges of accruals every year in, year out is going to be history, because the accruals for COSATMA will be cleansed, especially on around the scholar transport. And communities and members will hear, as we present the provincial budget, how we have allocated the Department of COSATMA to be able to go out on a tender, but also how they've closed their financial year in this current financial year. The reallocation of the above funds has necessitated the province to embark on a process of tabling the second adjustment budget, which will assist the appropriation of the funds into the Provincial Revenue Fund. Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to table before this August House the 2022-23 second adjustment budget bill for your consideration. As we all know that we have done the adjustment last year. To the extent that the second adjustment budget has been necessitated by the changes of the Division of Revenue Act, it would impact positively, my apologies, it will impact positively on the expenditure of mainly two departments, Community Safety and Transport Management and the Department of Health, including the need to finalize, there's a need to finalize the bill, and I respectfully, Madam Speaker, request this August House to consider the bill and ensure that it is finalized by the 11th of March 2023. The reason why we are pleading for the date, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that we are able to close the books on time as we are closing the financial year of 2021-22 financial year, Madam Speaker. And this will also allow the department, especially the Department of COSAPMA, to be able to make its payments before the government closes its books and the system. As we all know that there's been an outcry in the public space that the Department of COSAPMA is not being able to pay some of its service providers within the Lena Transport and services. Madam Speaker, let me table the second adjustment budget, and which actually the first adjustment budget was in the last year was 51,633,856,000 rands. Now with the second adjustment, we are bringing before your August House, Madam Speaker, and Musa Khota, we are bringing the second adjustment budget appropriation, which a total budget of 51,721,932,000 rands. Musa Khota ke yone pegelo e ke tlisitseng fa pele ga ntlo ya rona e tlotlegang gore kgone go e amogela gore puso e kgone go tsweletsa ditirelo kwa bathong thata mo lefapheng la pholo le mo lefapheng la tirelo ya transport. Ke a leboga Musa Khota.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pastor. While still there, Secretary, may you please read the bill for the first time?
The bill shall be called Northwest Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pastor. You may leave the podium. This bill and the accompanying, there's a chair, because you are coming back, Honorable Pastor, there's a chair somewhere there. This bill and the accompanying documents stands referred to the Portfolio Committee on Premier Finance, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs for further processing. The committee must prioritize this bill and report back to the House in the next special sitting that will be convened on Thursday, 9th March 2023. Honorable Osho, you may now present the budget speech and introduce the Northwest Appropriation Bill 2023 to the House in terms of Rule 247. Honorable Osho, you have 40 minutes. You did very well earlier, but you have 40 minutes. Proceed.
Ke a leboga Musa Khota, mme Susana Basetsana Nokwa Kadanchi. Jaka ke setse ke busheditse our MEC and our Deputy Speaker Melina Micha Nontsama of speedy recovery, and acknowledge our Honorable Premier Reka Ubitsa Bushimape, members of the Executive Council, members of the Provincial Legislature. I must acknowledge mayors, executive mayors, speakers of municipalities, MMCs, and ex-co-chairs of finance who are on the gallery, business community, the Kositsarona. I must indicate that, Madam Speaker, we are having our young people who have interest within the financial sector from various schools around Mahikeng, Modulasetulo wa ntlo ya dikgosi offense Board of Public Entities, heads of departments and CEOs of public entities and MMs from various municipalities together with the CFOs, leaders and members of labor movements, civil society and faith-based organizations, distinguished guests, bagaetsho dumelang gape. Madam Speaker, it gives me a great pleasure to stand here today to present the 2023-24 budget proposal to this August House, which sets out the funding proposal for various service delivery programs that will be executed as part of the 2023 medium-term expenditure framework. To enable us to communicate the proposals, we will be tabling the following documents for the indulgence and consideration 2023 appropriation bill. The second document is a 2023-24 estimates on the provincial revenue and expenditure. The third document is a provincial socio-economic review and outlook, and the largest embodies the accomplishments and pledges made since the commencement of our journey in 2019, when the current administration began its term in 2019. It inherited the administration with huge service delivery challenges. These challenges, service delivery programs. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the province revised the 2020-2021 budget thrice, which was unprecedented. The budget had to be reprioritized to provide for socio-economic relief, increase public health spending, and a vaccine rollout. And Madam Speaker, I think we have done well under the stewardship of the Department of Health, where we were from time to time through the command center being able to respond to the response plan. This budget aims to showcase the government's commitment towards funding service delivery programs and sets a solid foundation for the next administration to sustain the execution of the programs meant to eradicate the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Leeto la rona le ntse le se bonolo ebile ga le kitla le nna bonolo ka ntlha ya dikgwetlho di le dintsi tse bagarona ba itemogelang tsona jaaka kolotlase ya ikonomi, matlhotlhapelo a tlhago, botlhokatiro, lehuma le malwetse a tswelelang go runya nako le nako. Seno se ba puso ka fa tlase ga kgatelelo e seng kana ka sepe. Bagaetsho, ke a le netefaletsa gore puso ga e ne felelwa ke ditlhale merutseng. E tla tswelela gore ka bonyenyane jo e nang le bone e kgaoganye bonnye bo go rebolela ditirelo go ya bokone bophirima ka bophara. Ga go nke go lekana mme ga re kitla re phuta matsogo re reteletswe. Madam Speaker, Premier Bushimape stated in his 2023 State of the Province address that the government's primary focus to the next 12 months will be the biggest ever government delivery program, I quote him, which will involve abandoning planning and conferences and instead working in the neighborhoods and streets to improve service delivery. We pledge to use public funds responsibly by reducing unnecessary spending, increasing efficiency, and saving through appropriate use of technology and economics of scale. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwan, has reported that the national economy has grown by 2.5% in 2022, which growth is attributed to increased demand of our minerals, swift recovery from COVID-19 induced economic decline, as well as gains from the latest economic rebase as reported during the third quarter of the 2022. The combined private sector and public sector investment, 13% of gross domestic product, is well below the National Development Plan target of 30%, as well as the international norm of 20%. The growth rate is still below the NDP target of 6%, which was meant to eliminate the persistent socio-economic problems, including the current national and provincial unemployment rate of 32% and 39% respectively. The most affected are the youth or those who enter the labor market for the first time. Madam Speaker, The provincial economy is performing at a suboptimal level. The Northwest Province has a total real GDP of 231.7 billion. Overall, the provincial economy is expected to register an average annual growth rate of 1.48% from 2021 to 2026 financial years. The province contributes 7% of the national population and national economy. In return, the province is entitled to 7% of the national collected tax revenue through equitable share in 2023. The greatest contributor to the Northwest Province economy in 2021 was the Bujanala Platinum District, which contributed 98.3 billion, which is reduction from 106.7 billion in 2019. And we all know this is also a result of COVID-19 pandemic challenges, which affected also the economy that was still also, we were also under serious economic meltdown. The lowest contributing region in the is Dr. Ruth Khomotsi Mumpati district, which contributed 19.8 billion in 2021. Overall, the provincial economy is expected to register an average annual growth rate of 1.48% from 2021 to 2026 financial years. Madam Speaker, the province is able to meet its revenue targets mainly because of the joint planning between provincial treasury and all the departments. Through these collaborations, I am glad to announce that our overall revenue performances reached the pre-COVID levels. We are on course towards revising the long-term strategy that provincial owned revenue could progressively contribute 5% of the total budget in line with international best practices. Our revenue tariffs remain generally cost-reflective and competitive. Madam Speaker, the overall allocation for the province is 50.8 billion, 51.9 billion, and 54.3 billion in the MTF cycle, where with the years of 2023-24, which is currently being tabled, and the outer years of 2024-25, 2025-26 financial years, respectively. The provincial fiscal framework reflects equitable share as the main source of funding for the provincial budget. The 2022-23 equitable share allocation shows a slight decrease in the first year by 0.4% when compared to the 2022-23 adjustment budget. It improves to 4.9% in the outer year of the MTF cycle. The growth creates an opportunity for expansion on sustainability of critical services to the communities of the Northwest Province. Madam Speaker, let me reflect on the allocations that are to be provided to all the departments, including the provincial legislature. Honourable Speaker, included in the main allocation per year are increase in conditional grants of 742.1 million in 2023-24 and 49.1 million in 2024-25 and 83.9 million in 2025-26 financial years. These increases are mainly attributed to health, education, and public works and roads. For the Northwest Provincial Legislature, it receives an amount of 500 million. Included in this allocation is an additional 12.8 million, of which 5.8 million is for improvement in conditions of service and 7 million for the general budget pressures and revision for organizational structure. The Office of the Premier receives an amount of 482 million. The ICT transformation in the province has been allocated 119 million each year to enable connectivity across the province in most public institutions, including schools, libraries, clinics, and hospitals, and upgrading of the government ICT system. Projects and programs announced by the Honourable Premier in the State of the Province address have been funded, and the Office of the Premier is expected to ensure that they find expression in the annual performance plans of all respective departments, including our entities. Madam Speaker, the Provincial Treasury receives an amount of 565 million to continue with the provision of technical support to municipalities, departments, and public entities. The Department of Community Safety and Transport Management is allocated 2.3 billion. Provincial Executive Council has resolved to decentralize the management of the government fleet from the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management to all provincial departments effective from the 1st of April 2023. This will reduce the departmental own revenue by 506 million over the MTF cycle. The lost revenue budgets from individual departments will be utilized to maintain, repair, and refuel the departmental pool services, vehicles in departments, and no additional funding will be allocated to departments with the exception of the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management for this purpose. This is to cushion the department from the related own revenue loss as a result of this decentralization process. An allocation of 90 million over the MTF, translating to 30 million each year, will be added to the department's budget. So we will also cushion COSATMA to ensure that they are able also to recover from the losses in terms of the revenue that they've contributed over years. Madam Speaker, the scholar transport is a critical component of the right to basic education, and without it, thousands of learners will continue to struggle to gain access to schools in a safe and dignified way. As a result of this collaborative effort, a total amount of 1.3 billion over the 2023-2024 MTF is set aside for scholar transport with a single layer allocation of 450 million. To address the challenges that are related to the implementation of scholar transport program, the three departments, Education, COSATMA, and Provincial Treasury, have agreed to work together to address all scholar transport-related challenges. Part of addressing these challenges relates to verification of all routes and ensure that they all fall within the prescribed policy. However, the process with COSATMA in making sure that the scholars transport budget is concluded and the processes goes underway will proceed parallel to the process of verification. The three departments have also agreed to cap inefficiencies by strengthening monitoring towards the impact of deviation from the national standards. Part of the solution towards scholar transport, the Department of Education would fast-track the development of the mega schools to release the financial burden relating to this expenditure item. Madam Speaker, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is allocated an amount of 659 million to effectively monitor, support, and promote local government and institution of traditional leadership through cooperative governance system. Inclusive in this allocation is an amount of 155.2 million over the MTF for water and sanitation. This allocation is for the short-term water intervention initiatives, honorable members. Conditional grants for provision of water within municipalities will continue to serve as the main source of funding for addressing water challenges in the province. The department should take the lead and support municipalities in drafting practical and implementable plans for water-related initiatives and ensure that those plans are successfully implemented. And I think MEC Malloy has already indicated and also responded on the statements made by members on grants expenditure. The Department of Health receives an amount of 15.2 billion. The additions for the conditional grants allocation for the Department of Health amounts to 113 million for 2023-24 for health facility revitalization grant, human resource and training grant, national health insurance grant, national treasury services grant, and expanded public works program. Availability of medicine and medical supplies in clinics and hospitals is key to preserve lives and improve conditions thereof. Medical inflation is normally higher than normal goods and services inflation. However, provincial budgets are not growing at a faster rate compared to medical expenditure. This results in the Department of Health registering accruals on medicines and medical supplies year on year. The budget makes provision for 200 million each year of the MTF towards accruals, and the department is also expected to ring-fence an additional amount of 150 million within the same period towards accruals. Additional allocations of 500.3 578.6 million for 2023-24, and 557 million for 2024-25, and 578.8 million for 2025-26 financial years have been added to address budget pressures and shortfall on compensation of employees. Madam Speaker, the Department of Education is allocated a budget of 20.5 billion. Included in this budget is an amount of 153 million in the 2023-24 financial year for Early Childhood Development Grant and the National School Nutrition Program Grant and Education Infrastructure Grant. Early Childhood Development Grant received a top-up subsidy amount of 30 million in the outer 2 years for increasing access to early childhood subsidy, the ECD, and pre-registration support packages and nutrition support and results-based finance initiative. In addition, an amount of 109 million has been allocated to the Education Infrastructure Grant in 2023-24 financial year for the carry-through costs associated with the repairs and rehabilitation of schools damaged by floods. An additional allocation of 36 million to the National School Nutrition Program Grant throughout the MTF is geared towards the continuation of the provision of nutritious meals to a total learners of 744,320 each day at school. So we are having this total number of our learners in schools that we need to take care of. On our speaker, job creation within the education sector is funded to the tune of 405.5 million in 2023-24 financial year through the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. This budget also makes provision for learner and teacher support material to the value of 672 million. Furthermore, to facilitate effective learning and reducing the impact of high costs of airtime, internet data for learners, and for the rollout of access to internet through Wi-Fi connectivity at schools, an amount of 97.3 million is allocated for these critical expenditure items over the medium-term expenditure framework. This government, Madam Speaker and honorable members, is committed to improve performance of our learners in the province by reclaiming the status of the second best performing province, and this budget makes provision of 443.6 million over the MTF for that purpose through the review of learner attainment improvement strategies. Madam Speaker, on Sunday, the 5th March, we were awakened to very sad news of the passing away of one of the greatest contributors to the education sector our country has ever seen. The loss of MEC Tate Makwe in the Free State province was untimely and will leave a devastating impact within the sector and the country at large. We wish to take this opportunity to pay our respect to him, and we send our sincere condolences to his family and the people of Free State. We pray for their strength during this challenging period. May the soul of Comrade Tate rest in eternal peace, and his legacy in the education sector will remain as a footprint that we will all follow through and uphold to. The Department of Social Development is allocated 1.7 billion. Included in the allocation for social development, our allocations for absorption of social worker graduates, which amounts to 161.4 million, food relief program, which a total of allocation of 24.2 million, and 71.3 million for the fight against substance abuse, and 171.6 million for expansion of social work services, and these funds are allocated over the MTF. The Department of Arts, Culture, Sports and Recreation received 742 million. In terms of the program, Cultural Affairs is allocated 230.7 million. Libraries and Archive Services 206.1 million, and Sports and Recreation it's 178.2 million in the first year on the MTF. Mamatu Stadium, strategically located in the capital city of the province, is meant to promote healthy lifestyles through different sporting and cultural activities. The stadium is well positioned to bring economic spin-offs for the province, and it hosts different events, and an amount of 7 million is made available in the first 2 years of the MTF period for maintenance and upkeep of this facility. Madam Speaker, Public Works and Roads receives 3.8 billion, including an increase to Provincial Roads Maintenance Grant of 421 million to incentivize comprehensive road maintenance planning to improve road network through maintenance and rehabilitation of provincial roads. The funding is added for the 2023-24 financial year. Inclusive in the departmental allocation is an amount of 1 billion for Public Works Infrastructure Program to provide the provincial government building infrastructure that is accessible, integrated, and environmentally sensitive and friendly. Included in this funding are allocations for the revamping of renovation of Haruna building, securing of additional office space, and disposal of obsolete assets. Madam Speaker, the Department of Human Settlement is allocated 1.9 billion. Provincial Emergency Housing Grant, previously in the Department of Human Settlement, has now been moved to the National Department of Human Settlements and therefore ceases to exist as a conditional grant in the provinces across the country. The province will continue to benefit from the national allocations for emergency housing projects, which would be administered by the National Department of Human Settlement. An allocation of 20 billion has been availed in 2023-24 financial year to address the housing challenges as a result of the devastating effects of the flood disaster in Dielpan. Madam Speaker, the Department of Economic Development, Environment, Conservation and Tourism receives an amount of 1 billion. His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced in his State of the Nation address that energy crisis has been declared a national disaster. To give effect to this, an amount of 30 million has been made available in 2023-24 for renewable energy-related initiatives. It's for planning purposes. This will assist the province to contribute to the national efforts to move towards greener energy as well as to mitigate the effects of load shedding in the province. This allocation will be made to the Northwest Development Corporation for planning purposes like I've indicated and to roll out and for the rollout activities that will attract private sector investment on renewable energy. The allocation is to be utilized as a catalyst to unlocking sector-related investment and to stimulate manufacturing capabilities within the sector. The Northwest Province has the potential to attract private sector investment in renewable energy projects because of the availability of platinum and conducive climatic conditions, both of which are important inputs for renewable energy generation. Madam Speaker, the ideal location for this project will be around the Dr. Kenneth Kaunda district, with more focus in the city of Matlosane, which requires an economic injection to revive the mining towns after closure of some of the gold mines that were the main drivers of the economy. This will be the provincial contribution towards national initiatives to invest in renewable energy to address the negative effects of excessive carbon emissions from fossil fuel consumption. Madam Speaker, we are pleased to announce that the merger of two public entities, Northwest Parks Board and Northwest Tourism Board, has been finalized and will operate as the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board effective from the 1st of April 2023. An amount of 221 million has been allocated for the new entity for each year. The Department of Agriculture and Rural Development is allocated an amount of 1.2 billion. The province has been experiencing high rainfalls resulting in floods in some parts of the province. These floods threaten job creation and food security. Madam Speaker, support to farmers is critical to ensure that we continue to increase number of those who are able to enter and compete in the larger markets through commercialization. The budget provides for the 245 million in each of the MTF periods to support farmers and increase food production in order to mitigate against the effects of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Madam Speaker, as I focus on areas for 2023 financial year, I must, in acknowledging the importance of accelerating service delivery, these are the following key deliverables for 2023-2024 financial year, which we are going to advocate and advance through decisive action as a collective of EXCO under the stewardship of Honorable Premier Mape. Provincial Treasury, in support to the Municipal Council, will continue with the implementation of the financial recovery plans. 9 provincial executive representatives have been appointed for Naledi, Tswaing, Madibeng, Ramotshere Muilwa, Ditsobotla, and Khetlen River local municipalities, as well as Dr. Rutsukhmotse Mumpati district, including Mamusa and Makwasi Hills, who are being supported through Section 154 of the Constitution. In an endeavor to improve the audit outcomes in municipalities, Provincial Treasury will continue to monitor and capacitate municipalities for full utilization of web and enabled system, where the audit action plans will be captured on the system and progress on the implementation of action plan is reported on monthly basis. This will also be discussed through our mini-mecs of both COSATMA as well as our mini-mec on finance. We have already taken through mayors and MMCs of finance and chairs of committees on finance on this system. And they understand how to follow it through as part of an instrument to conduct oversight over administration. Madam Speaker, as the current administration will not sleep well until we get to see municipalities turned around or re-engineered. The audit outcomes of departments have consistently been improving since 2019. To date, with Provincial Treasury having maintained a clean audit for consecutive 9 years, the clean audit initiative is progressing well, and 6 departments are now managed under this project. The support function in the public entities is steadily recording progress, which has yielded 1 clean audit. This is a remarkable achievement given the challenges that public entities have gone through. We must now replicate this excellent work to our municipalities. The Provincial Treasury will continue to support departments and public entities by facilitating them with the skills to improve audit outcomes. Public entities with severe capacity challenges will be supported by providing resources that will bridge the gaps that have been identified. The Clean Audit project will be extended to more departments and entities. Infrastructure delivery and maintenance has been identified by the current administration as one of the drivers of the economy in the province. Madam Speaker, in our endeavor to ensure that infrastructure delivery as a discipline is elevated in the province, the Provincial Treasury will embark on the review of the Northwest Infrastructure Delivery Management System protocol, utilized to guide infrastructure planning and delivery. In the new financial year, Provincial Treasury, in collaboration with National Treasury, will roll out the IDMS help desk to all provincial departments. The introduction of the help desk will to a certain extent address the poor infrastructure performance in the province, lack of integrated planning, and the implementation of projects that are not well conceptualized. As part of these budget proposals that are being tabled, Madam Speaker, a total of allocation of 5.9 billion has been earmarked for infrastructure implementation and delivery for the province. About 60% of the total infrastructure allocation is budgeted for existing infrastructure assets, which comprise of maintenance and repairs, upgrades and additions, rehabilitation and refurbishments. The new infrastructure allocation budget share amounts to 80%, whilst infrastructure transfers, which is made up of current and capital, amounted to 29%. The bulk of infrastructure transfers include the construction of new infrastructure assets, particularly housing projects. The departments are expected to intensify labor-intensive programs and promote the massification of jobs through utilization of 5.9 billion for infrastructure. Madam Speaker, as part of this budget process, we received several budget tips from ordinary members of the public. Lucky Jasmine advised that more funds need to be directed to public works so that more jobs could be created through infrastructure delivery. Jasmine's concern is indeed addressed as jobs will be created through our infrastructure delivery program. National Treasury has reviewed and disseminated new preferential procurement regulations to be implemented with effect from the 16th January 2023. These regulations, Madam Speaker, empowers accounting officers of all organs of state to develop preferential procurement policies with specific goals to enact the regulations. Honourable Speaker, the Provincial Treasury will be monitoring the implementation of the procurement policies by organs of state with view of ensuring that procurement meets the 40% target for women, youth, people with disabilities and military veterans through the strict adherence to the specific goals as outlined. Non-compliance with the provisions of the 2022 Provincial Procurement Regulation will lead to incurring irregular expenditures. And this also is expected to be implemented by all our municipalities in the local sphere of government. The training, Madam Speaker, is continuing for chief financial officers of municipalities, departments and entities, and is envisaged to be finalized before the end of the current financial year. Madam Speaker, let me assure you and assure the people of Northwest and this August House that despite the scarcity of resources, the budget table today will address the needs of our people, which are mainly provision of quality health care, improving education standards, and investing in adequate infrastructure. Furthermore, the budget also addresses issues of building safer communities, restoring the dignity of vulnerable people, provision of housing and promotion of arts, culture and sports, mainly for the youth of our province. This budget has been prepared under tremendous pressure, and I must therefore want to take this time to thank all the heads of the department, the chief financial officers, and all officials who have worked around the clock to finalize all the related budget, to finalize all the related budget books for consolidation by the officials of Provincial Treasury led by our SG. Madam Speaker, the book of Proverbs 24, verse 10, which reads as follows, I quote, "If you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength?" Close quote. This passage reminds us that setbacks and difficulties are part of our realities. However, it is important that we embrace them and reject feelings of defeat at all material times. The strength of wisdom is not solitary. It's even having an understanding and relying on the wisdom of others. It is that I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker and honorable members, that I thank and express my sincere gratitude to the following for their guidance and support during the compilation of the 2023-2024 provincial budget. I want to take this time to thank you, through you, Madam Speaker, to thank you, Honorable Premier Re Mape, for your guidance, your wisdom, and the stewardship. I know it was not an easy budget. At some point, you raised sharply certain issues, but they made us better people as Provincial Treasurer, and we continue to appreciate your guidance. sure that we also demonstrate that efficiency and excellence. And to my family, in the Northwest and outside the Northwest, I want to thank you for the messages that you sent to me this morning and for your prayers. And therefore, Mothers Union, thank you very much where you are for your prayers that you've heard from Thursday till this morning. Madam Speaker, in closing, I wish to take this opportunity to thank my political home, the glorious African National Congress, for affording me this golden opportunity to serve in my current role. Through my active participation in office, I have had the honor to be at the forefront of advancing the social transformation agenda through decisive action in response to acceleration of service delivery to the people of Northwest. Through the budgetary process, the ANC government has consistently ensured that the budgets of departments, entities, and municipalities continue to benefit the large majority of the disenfranchised members of our communities. Madam Speaker, as I thank you, allow me to table the allocation for 2023 for the departments and the provincial legislature, whereby I put before you the medium-term allocation for 2023 financial year of a total of 50,856,491,000 rands. That the breakdown, Madam Speaker, I've already alluded to during the indicated per budget item of all the budget votes of the department. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for being patient with me. And my apologies for the letter of yesterday, like you whipped me last night. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC Hosho. The Northwest Appropriation Bill 2023 is referred to the Portfolio Committee on Premier Finance, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs for further processing. Honorable members of this House, guests, you are invited by the MEC Finance to the lunch at Palms Hotel. That is the only announcement we have for today. This sitting is adjourned. Enkos.